Welcome to Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook at Sharlot Hall Museum in Prescott, Arizona. My guest this week is Brad Courtney, also known as the Whiskey Row historian, and a really good friend of mine. He and his wife Wendy live here in Prescott. And Brad, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here at Sharlot Hall Museum.
Well, Brad, it's great for you to be here. I been looking forward to it, and you and I have no problem sitting down and talking about history and the Old West.
It seems to always come up, the subject. Every time we're together, we should end up talking about history.
Right? You know, well, it's a great thing, and I'm glad to call you my friend and have you in here today at Sharlot Hall Museum. We're recording live here at the Education Center on campus, and it's a beautiful day out in Prescott today.
Yeah.
And we're really not sure if winter is over, but we're appreciating the sunshine and are hoping for a little bit more snow and rain.
Did we have a winter?
We had a little bit.
A little bit.
California was greedy with their rain. They didn't let it come across the desert. So, but we can still hope. And now, Brad, I understand, though, you grew up somewhere where there usually was no shortage of rain. Tell us a little bit about your childhood growing up in Michigan.
So I was actually born in Lexington, Kentucky. I have no memory of that. My first memories are in Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
And when I was just before I was 5 years old, we moved to Michigan near Detroit, and we spent a few years there. But then there was some point where my dad grew up on a farm in Kentucky, so he always wanted to get back to that. He was a very educated man. He was a teacher, but his farming was his roots, So we ended up buying a farm in southwest Michigan, south of Kalamazoo, about 40 miles. He bought a 120-acre farm with a brick barn on it, fully equipped with tractors. It had a guest house and beautiful. It's the house I remember growing up in, a big old farmhouse, and crop in the field for $42,000.
Amazing.
1967.
Sounds so beautiful.
I can't even buy a single wide mobile home with that.
Yeah, that's remarkable. Now, I like to talk to people about where they grew up in. So, Southwest Michigan. So, how far were you from the nearest Great Lake? Is that Lake Michigan?
Yeah, Lake Michigan.
And then Grand Rapids, is that kind of due west of you?
Grand Rapids was north, that I remember.
Okay.
I had friends there, and it was actually a friend. It's the furniture capital of the world, something like that.
Uh-huh.
One of my friends, his father owned a furniture selling chain. But we were about an hour. If you know where South Haven is, that was a common place for us high schoolers to go to Lake Michigan. And on the beach there, I can't remember the name of the beach. It was just an hour away, just straight over. So, yeah, it was that country. And Minden was where I went to high school. We were up 4 miles outside of the little town of Minden. The thing about Minden is interesting. It was there were two sites that were looked at for Notre Dame, the school, the university. It lost out, but it was the second choice. What's interesting about that, Notre Dame has a football dynasty. We were a football dynasty, which I always thought was weird. It was very Catholic too, but yeah, we won. So we got like the record for state championship football. I always thought that was interesting.
How about that? I didn't know there was a connection. That's another connection you and I have, because I went to Notre Dame High School in Sherman Oaks, California, started by the Holy Cross Brothers, the same brothers who founded Notre Dame in South Bend. And so there's another connection we have there, Brad.
We were only an hour from South Bend when I go to see Notre Dame play.
Oh, how about that?
Joe Theismann.
I'm kind of jealous about that.
That was cool.
I bet. We wore the green and gold and blue and gold at my high school and wore those big NDs on our Letterman jackets.
Yeah.
That is.
I'm still a Notre Dame fan, almost as much as you of them.
All right. I like that. And I guess you're a little conflicted when Go Blue, when Michigan and ND play each other. But
I'm torn, but I kind of lean toward Notre Dame for some reason.
Yeah. Well, that's that part of the country.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about this farm life. Was it dairy farm, cattle, apples, cherries? I mean, Michigan, I don't think the rest of America understands what a fertile breadbasket Michigan is for the country. It's a beautiful state.
And where I lived, it was very Indiana-like.
Okay.
Indiana, I think, was 30 minutes away. And I actually went to college in Upland, Indiana, at Taylor University. So I had that. But what it was like, it was farm country.
Rolling hills?
No, it was pretty flat.
Okay.
But there was a little rockiness to it. The hills were. We had one hill. I just went back this summer for my 50th reunion. We had a place called Mumby's Hill where we gather. The guy would let us go there and do teenage stuff, and you look at the hill today here in Prescott. It would be like like going up Gurley Street, Elks Theater.
Right.
It was that was a hill.
So you could use sled and
we'd sled. Yeah, we there was a little creek below. I remember memories of us sledding and running into that creek.
Yeah,
but I love farm life. I really thought that's where I'd end up doing. So my goal was, I was a runner. I was going to win the Olympics. I was going to win the mile run. I was sure of it. Then I was going to come back, and my dad had I was going to inherit the farm, and I was going to farm. I was going to raise cattle. But we started out, when we bought the farm, it was a produce farm, and they had strawberries in the field. But my dad started planting corn. I think it was like just field corn, for livestock. Then he bought cattle, and that was my favorite part. We raising the cattle for 3, 4, 5 years. I had a horse, everything, and then I tell the story that where the money was in chickens.
Mm-hmm.
So he bought another farm. He ended up buying 4 different farms. So we had farm 1, farm 2, farm 3, farm 4. Farm 2 was the chicken, and it was layers. And the first farm, this is farm 2, had 50,000 layers. God, it was awful. It was just the worst. He traded the cattle in for chickens.
All across the Midwest, you'll see farmers who have soybeans and corn, maybe some cattle, but you'll see their extra income with that chicken farm on their property.
It made my dad a millionaire, is what it did. We ended up buying farm 4, or maybe it was 3. I lose track now, but it had 25,000 chickens. So we had 75,000 chickens. So we had 75,000 chickens would produce 50,000 eggs a day. And man, that was just work.
There
was no romance to it whatsoever. Have you seen Napoleon Dynamite? That scene where it was just like that.
Right. So I can imagine, though, it sounds like you're in the southwestern plains of Michigan, not in the wooded.
It was wooded.
Mm-hmm.
It's very wooded. What's interesting is it's kind of Muhammad Ali lived downriver from us, about 30 minutes away.
All right.
Beautiful country.
Yeah.
I mean, just beautiful. We had creeks running through our farm. We had wooded areas. People would come and hunt. We had a stream that ran into a pond, and we catch a northern pike. It was very very wooded.
Well, it sure sounds like if for me as a kid growing up in North Hollywood, California, and you'd watch the television shows about kids growing up in the country, and I'll tell you what, I would be a little jealous of that kind of childhood. It sounds wonderful, and
I had no plans of leaving it. I loved it.
Yeah,
and we went back this summer. Just loved it.
So, did you ever go out to that beach? Our favorite beach was Zuma Beach, up towards north of Malibu, or Will Rogers. And of course, you go to the beach in Los Angeles, and you're looking west out across the Pacific. You go to your beach. What was the name of your beach?
I don't know. It was South Haven. It was beach. I don't know. We just went to the beach. There was the dunes. It was the
dunes?
Yeah, dunes.
So did you ever stand up on those dunes or go down to the shore of Lake Michigan and look west and kind of like a pioneer thinking, someday my road's going to take me west?
I remember when I grew up, we had social studies. I remember studying the Navajo. And my teacher would tell us about the Navajo. For some reason, that really intrigued me. So that my first memories of thinking about the West are that. And as you know, I ended up on the Navajo reservation for 12 years. But there was always that. And my dad had books. He had a lot of books about Western history. And my mother was Native American, so he had a special interest in Native American history, and that took you west. So I was learning about the Apaches and the Sioux and Crazy Horse and Geronimo and Sitting Bull as I grew up, just from my dad's library. So I can't say I looked. There were other attractions on the beach.
Well, let's take a break there, and we're going to talk a little bit about how your trails led you west from Michigan and Indiana to Prescott, Arizona.
Excellent.
If you're looking for the store that has everything, Prescott True Value Hardware might be your answer. From having that part to fix that leaky faucet to decorating your garden with charm, they've got it all at Prescott True Value Hardware, and a friendly face to match. For over 30 years, they've proudly served Prescott, supporting neighbors like you and local nonprofits along the way. So take time and visit Prescott True Value Hardware at 846 Miller Valley Road. They're more than just a hardware store. Stuart Rosebrook back on Arizona Roundup with my guest and friend Brad Courtney, the Whiskey Row historian in Prescott, Arizona. And Brad, before we took our break, we were talking a little bit about looking westward. And I know we were talking a little bit about what a great childhood you had, and athletics were such an important part of your life, and academics, and how you started getting interested in history. And so coming west wasn't on the top of your mind as you were thinking about going to college. You played, I think you've told me, 3 or 4 sports in high school?
I played 3 sports in high school. I went on an athletic scholarship to Western Michigan University as a runner. My dream was to run the mile with the 1,500 meters. Like I said, I was going to win.
Mm-hmm.
It was going to be a gold. But that was my whole life. Academics really took – I was always an independent scholar,
right,
for lack of a better word. But I was a terrible student.
So did you finish your 4 years at Western Michigan as a runner, or did you transfer somewhere else?
I did. I did not finish at Western. I went there a year and a half, and then I transferred to a Christian school called Taylor University, right in the middle of Indiana, and I loved it there. That's where I met my current best friend. I met my future wife, Holly, there, and that's where I did most of my undergrad work there. And I majored in religion, of all things, so biblical literature as well.
Interesting. So did you continue to compete in athletics at Taylor?
At Taylor, yes.
Is it college or university?
Yeah, and I switched to the steeplechase, 3,000 meter steeplechase. I did run the 15, but I ran the steeplechase, won some championships there. But there was a point, I think, my 3rd or 4th year, just life led me in a different direction. And I went back to Michigan. That's where I spent up until 1981 working on my dad's farm.
Right. And was it so you got back to Michigan and working at your dad's farm? It's the early 1980s, and you have your degree, as you said, in religious studies from Taylor. And when did you make the decision to travel west and pursue a career?
So step backwards is, I was always physical labor came natural to me. But then in 1978, in August, we were just talking about it, I flipped my Jeep, my CJ5 Jeep. It, long story short, it rolled over on my hand as it was dragging down the road, and let's just say, crippled my hand. I actually thought I was going to lose my hand. And I don't have much use of my right hand, so physical labor became something that was more of a challenge. I could still do it, but if you're right-handed and you lose the use of your hand, your strong hand, it's a problem.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds. I had a CJ7, and those CJ5s always had a reputation.
Narrow wheelbase.
Yeah, for flipping.
Yeah,
and so it sounds like it was kind of a crossroads for you, somewhat of an epiphany, and you had to kind of regroup a little bit.
I did. It was 20-some operations to get some use of my hand. That's another story. But I got married, and I believe it was 80. Trying to remember when I got married. Got married in 80. In 81, I had a job offer from a friend was out there, and they gave me Tuba City. They offered me a job. My other major actually was a double major. I majored in physical education and religion, body and soul. I always said I
Right.
got it covered. But I got a job as a physical education teacher in Tuba City. And like I said, I'd been really enamored with the Navajo. The Navajo were very interesting to me, and I went out there, and it was like really felt like I actually one time pinched myself. It was so different from Michigan. And I went out there thinking I'd live there for a year, and I just fell in love with it. I always thought I'd go back to Michigan, and I just fell in love with it. And skipping a little bit ahead, I got a job in the summer as a Colorado River pilot through the canyons, and that kept me there. I thought I'd do that forever. So I ended up, 12 years later, I was still there.
Well, tell me a little bit about that. Did you bring your family, your new bride? And
I did.
Yeah.
Almost didn't bring her. She almost goes, I ain't coming.
And so you settled into Tuba City. I knew a family there, the Kilgore family, that ran the local trading post for many years.
Oh, right there.
And
Tuba City Trading Post?
Yeah, that beautiful kind of hogan-shaped building. And
still there.
Still right in the center of town. And so what did you teach in Tuba City High School?
No, it was the boarding school.
Okay.
So they were still at that time. I don't think they do it anymore. It was actually dorms.
Okay.
Then. So, that's controversial. And I got to admit, it was conflicted because these 5-year-old kids were taken from their homes. Not taken, they were just expected to be there. The mothers would bring them in. And I remember them just crying, because their mothers left, that became their home. But I taught physical education for, I can't remember how many years, but I ended up, I wanted to be in the classroom. So I ended up teaching what was called alternative education. They took all their, the junior high, the behavior problem kids, put them in one room with me. And to this day, it's my favorite teaching job I ever had. We were like our own little gang, that ruled the school. And being a little troublemaker myself when I grew up, I understood their mentality. So to this day, I talk to some of those kids,
Now, is this when you got interested in river rafting on the Grand Canyon?
That just kind of, I was always drawn to rivers. Growing up, the St. Joseph River was, which runs through Elkhart, Indiana. Like Muhammad Ali lived on the St. Joe River. It's a beautiful river. And our life just kind of revolved around that river. So I had a thing. I actually wrote a song called Apple Cider Creek about that river. And our life revolved around that river. So I had a natural affinity for rivers. But Tuba City, not too far from Lee's Ferry. So
right.
That's where everything kind of happened. So I'd go there, and I got into trout fishing, and every weekend I'd leave Tuba City. I'd go up either Lake Powell or Lee's Ferry, where there's world-class trout fishing and fish. And I can't remember how I learned about the river running job, but they liked the fact that I was a teacher, so that made me a natural guide for them, and they hired me. And next thing you know, I was a lead pilot, and I took over the company for 2 years. So I took a hiatus from teaching for 1 year, but it just was a natural thing to do. And it was teaching, when you give trips, you're really teaching when you're going down the river, giving a tour. So that was a natural part of it.
So were you guiding rafts all the way down through the whole Canyon River?
I did both. I did both.
So at Lee's Ferry, the short runs, but then all the way down through Lava Falls.
I did that. So my company was the only one, the Wilderness River Adventures, my company was the only company that did raft trips down from Glen Canyon Dam, 17 miles to Lee's Ferry. But every now and then I'd say, okay, I'm ready to go do a long trip. And boy, I tell you, it's just it's hard to describe what that's like. I almost gave my whole life up for that because it was just I don't have the words for it. It's just unbelievable. You're going down one of the seven wonders of the world, and you're seeing the whole thing from the bottom up. And it's just, there's so many things along the way to see. I can't even begin to tell you.
Well, we're going to take a quick break here and thank our sponsors. We're going to come back and talk a little bit about those times in the canyon that I'm sure inspired you to pursue your work in education, history, and writing. Since 1995, Helken & Horn Ad Agency in Prescott, Arizona has helped local businesses stand out and succeed. From print and radio to websites and social media, their talented team crafts your brand's message and offers a plan to get it out into the community. Want results backed by 30 years of experience? Visit azadagency.com today. Helken & Horn, where their slogan is "Be Known." This is Stuart Rosebrook on Arizona Roundup at Sharlot Hall Museum with my good friend Brad Courtney, also known as the Whiskey Row historian here in Prescott, Arizona. And we were just talking about the Grand Canyon, which of course has a great connection to Sharlot Hall herself, because she herself went and found inspiration in the northern lands of Arizona on her I believe it's 1911 trip,
Arizona Strip.
up on the Arizona Strip. And she probably saw a country that very few people ever in the last 100 plus years have ever seen. But she was a rugged, strong woman. And we were talking a little bit about that rugged pioneer spirit that you have, Brad, coming west from Michigan, surviving a car accident, losing a lot of the use of your right hand, finding inspiration working on the Navajo reservation, and finding inspiration from those young people that you taught and are still in touch with today. And then that's the unique experience of being a river guide on the Colorado River. What made you decide to leave the Navajo reservation and guiding on the Colorado River to go, as you've told me this before, you ended up in South Phoenix teaching in the Phoenix area for many years after that?
Yeah, I didn't want to. It's I still tear up thinking about that, because my kids, Josh and Lizzie, my two children, adult children now, adults, but they actually called the canyon Daddy's Canyon. When they saw it, it was Daddy's Canyon. And it was. I was so in love with it. Long story short, was a divorce. Did it. The mother of my children wanted to live in Phoenix, and I had promised her to do that. So she went down and kind of got settled there, and I kept the kids on Josh and Lindsay. We lived on the reservation. I remarried with Holly, and Holly taught on the reservation for a year. So I had the kids a year. My son, I'll have to show you this picture. It's one of my favorite pictures. My son started kindergarten there at the Tuba City. You're talking about Tuba City High School. It was Tuba City public school. So he went to school there, and he was the only white kid. And in the class picture, they put him right in the middle. And boy, did he stand out! But he looks so happy. They're all smiling. But it's one of our favorite memories. But I had promised to live in Phoenix, so I ended up down there. I got a job in inner city Phoenix at the Alhambra Elementary School District, right about a about a half block south, I guess, of where Grand Canyon University is. So where I was teaching, my school was walking distance. I'd actually walk my class up to Grand Canyon University when there was hardly anything there.
Right.
We'd have little picnics and stuff there. So I taught there for 19 years.
How about that?
Yeah.
And during that time period, your interest in history was renewed. Obviously, had never left you. When did you start? Were you teaching history at the junior high level? And when did you start thinking about pursuing your advanced degrees in history?
In history. Well, I did a non-traditional degree in education. when I finished that, I went, my real interest, my passion all along had been history. And I knew it. I was kind of fighting it, though. I was really, I wrote my dissertation. I was going to push that and make it.
Where's the money in history, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't, I wrote my dissertation. I thought, I'm going to write this dissertation. I'm going to put it in a book. It's going to change education. But my true passion was history. And I learned of a external degree with California State University in history. It was actually Master's in Humanities with a specialization in history. So basically it was, history. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made. It's just, I love doing it. I learned how to write history, how to study it. It was just I can't remember the years actually. It was in the 90s.
And is this Cal State Dominguez Hills?
Dominguez Hills.
Right.
Yeah.
And you talked earlier about some of your early heroes, the men and women heroines that attracted you to the West. And one of them, I believe, was Geronimo.
Yeah.
So you had this fascination in your soul for the Navajo reservation, your mom's in Native American history. She's a Lumbee. Remember the Lumbee?
Yeah.
And, but now you're here in Arizona and you begin studying Geronimo and the Great Apache War. Tell us a little bit about that research.
I remember when I was doing my undergrad degree, I took I was a terrible student, but I took history, and we were not allowed, but we had an assignment to do a book review, and I did Odie Falk's book on the Geronimo campaign. That was what I reviewed, and my best friend Tom was in that class with me, and he was a 4.0 student, and it's funny because I got an A on my book review on Geronimo, and he got a B. And like I said, I just had no interest in academics, but that interest was just natural. Even when I was in athletics, I studied Glenn Cunningham, great runners, Zetapack, and all these. I was always that history was fascinating to me. Geronimo, and then when I remember when the movie came out, like Marshall Trimble said, we get an interest in a subject sometimes by watching a movie. When I saw it was called Geronimo, an American Legend with Wes Studi, I think you pronounced it, and Jason Patric. And I just got fascinated by that movie, and I wanted to find out what really happened with Gatewood and Crook and Nelson Miles. And that was my master's thesis, just wanting to know the truth about how true was the movie. I think that leads a lot of historians looking into things. Most definitely.
Well, we got to figure out a way to get your master's thesis in print. I think a lot of people would probably enjoy reading it. And just like they enjoy reading your books about Prescott history and how that history is expanded. And we're going to take a break here and thank our sponsors. But when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit about Geronimo, Whiskey Row, Doc Holliday, Wyatt Earp, and how they all were making it happen here in Arizona in 1879 to 1882. So we'll be right back with Brad Courtney on Arizona Roundup with Stuart Rosebrook. For over 45 years, Blind Brothers Arizona has been the heart of window style in Prescott. From blinds, shutters, drapes, they custom design and install with expert precision. Tailored to you, whether for your home or office, trust the name locals rely on. Visit blindbrothersaz.com today or call 928-776-1845 for a free consultation. That's blindbrothersaz.com at 928-776-1845. Blind Brothers Arizona, the original since 1979. So my guest today is Brad Courtney. This is Stuart Rosebrook on Arizona Roundup at Sharlot Hall Museum. And before the break, we were talking a little bit about Sharlot Hall as a grand adventurer and really an ambassador for history and heritage and Western culture. She was a poet. She was a historian. She was the first woman to hold territorial office in a paid position in Arizona. And she really inspired and continues to inspire generations of writers and historians and poets and people who love history. And I think that here at Sharlot Hall Museum is one of the reasons that we work so hard to bring history to new generations. And sitting down with you, Brad, today and talking about your career, I realized that, and you may or may not realize this, but you have been an ambassador of education and history and helping change young people's lives for, I would probably say, over four decades. And you followed in those same footpaths of Sharlot Hall, brought you here to Prescott. And she would probably be excited to know that when you moved here, you became inspired by our local history and have spent a lot of time over the last 15 years researching, writing, discovering, uncovering the little known history, uncovering and I would say the legends and the myths, and either, perpetuating them because they're true or correcting them, even to those who want to continue to sell
That's
the
the
legend
show right there. That's the whole show.
Yeah, it is. Selling the legend.
Can I talk about Sharlot Hall for a minute?
Sure, I'd love to.
How that's how I became. I learned about Prescott. I would visit sometimes and come down and see Whiskey Row and all that, but never thought when I lived on the res I'd be living here in Prescott. But that's how I learned about Sharlot Hall, because Lee's Ferry, that was either the spot where my river trips ended or where they began. So Lee's Ferry is, to this day, is probably my favorite spot on earth besides my own home, out in the woods there. But I learned about Sharlot Hall because she visited that area around Lee's Ferry called the Arizona Strip. That's just magnificent, that drive, you go along the Vermilion Cliffs, you see buffalo, you turn left, you go Jacob Lake, which is a pond.
Right.
Ponds on our farm are bigger than Jacob Lake, and you go through the Kaibab Forest and that whole area. To this day, you look at Vermilion Cliffs, there's still places there where no one's even walked.
It's remarkable.
Yeah.
It is, it reminds me of how magical that corner of Arizona is. And no matter when you go, if you've been there once or 100 times, when you come up that highway out of Tuba City and you're driving north,
Echo Cliffs,
and you're going to make that turn up towards Jacob Lake and it's just Marble Canyon.
That whole strip from that you're going along the cliffs,
right?
It's just, I feel like I was in the Flintstones,
right?
A cartoon sometimes.
Climb all the way up to the Kaibab, and then you get up. If you continue on towards Fredonia, it's like the whole world opens up in front of you. There's nothing to block your view. It goes on forever. She must have been one courageous, tough, stubborn woman.
She was really unusual.
Right?
She was, you talk about someone to look up to. Well, you just, in the little show you just did there, the picture was shown of her posing with, when she was appointed state historian, and she's sitting there with all the men.
Right? that grin on her face.
She stood out.
Yes, she did. Like your son up in Tuba City.
You could see that certain eating grin on her face,
Right? So, could you imagine, though, walking down one of your favorite streets in America, Montezuma, Whiskey Row, with Sharlot Hall, and what she would have to say about the environs that you passed?
That would be something. Just, what she knows. And she didn't talk a lot about Whiskey Row. She did some.
Right.
I found references every now and then, but what struck me when in the archives here, she wrote so beautifully, and you go in the archives, you can see her handwritten poems, little scraps,
right, that
she wrote that I copied, and I can't remember what they said, but everything she wrote was just beautiful, everything.
So, Sharlot Hall, their family moved here, I believe, around 1883. So that's after they settled out along Lynx Creek and the Agua Fria out there at Orchard Ranch. And so the Earps and Holliday had come and gone, but their memory and their legend remains here in Prescott. And you've published 2 or 3 books about historic 19th century Prescott. What are the name of those books again, Brad?
So we got my first one. My when I learned that the actual history of Whiskey Row had not been written, I thought, and when I moved here and I looked for these books on Whiskey Row history because I was hearing all these stories, I figured they came from a book. There was no book, and I was writing, like we were just talking about. I was trying to make my master thesis into a book, the Geronimo Campaign. But I learned that there was no history written about Whiskey Row, and I thought I'd write a great big book. But then I came across a publisher who could publish a number of books. So, yeah, I started digging in. I went through every newspaper from 64 to 1902, Prescott newspaper in front of the microfilm reader, and uncovered stories that some were never known. Some stories I was looking for that never showed up. The stories I was hearing on Whiskey Row, and I kept waiting for those stories to show up. And then also origins of certain places that I was told didn't work out the way they were being told. But so that first book is Prescott's Original Whiskey Row. And when I started researching, I actually started at the Great Fire of 1900 because I knew something about it. But when I did that, I got to go back and get the rest of the story. So the second book was on that, and then the other 2 books were with Drew Desmond.
Right. And what are those titles?
True Tales of Prescott and Murder and Mayhem in Prescott.
Right. And just for our listeners to understand that we are so familiar with Whiskey Row, we should just tell them that Whiskey Row is Montezuma Street, which is also part of US 89, or was part of US 89, now Arizona 89. It is the west side of the Yavapai County Courthouse Plaza, which is the original plaza when the town was plotted out in 1864. And it's the center of the historic district of Prescott, and is all the visitors that come from all around the world. Most will come to Prescott and park on the plaza and stroll down those same streets, which our pioneers, settlers did, going all the way back to 160 years ago.
1864, it all started.
Right. And saloons. Then less than a half mile away, Sharlot Hall Museum is built around the Territorial Governor's Mansion, which was built in 1864 and is a crown jewel of the state historic libraries and museums here in the state, and is really a treasure for Arizonans.
Just real quick, a beer brewer helped build that. I think it was the mansion, John Rabel.
It may be, yeah. It's a 2-story ponderosa pine log cabin.
I think it was John Rabel in hats,
right?
And hats.
Very modest. Kind of reflects the thriftiness and the how humble it was to be in the Arizona Territory in 1864. And so when if our visitors come here and they walk down Montezuma, there between Goodwin and Gurley, and they walk down those storied streets. When did you? We're going to come back here after this break, but I would like to know, when did you start getting fascinated about Doc Holliday, Wyatt, and Virgil Earp, and even Big Nose Kate here in Prescott?
Yeah, how much time we got? I could tell a little story here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when I would come to Whiskey Row, when I lived in Phoenix, I'd come up, visit Whiskey Row. What do you hear about when you're on Whiskey Row? You heard about Wyatt Earp. You heard about Doc Holliday. And even this was his bar. And that they went here. And I just got the impression they just kind of pervaded the whole place, because in history they kind of do pervade everything, Then I started my research. I kept waiting for Wyatt Earp to show up in my research, and he didn't show up. Virgil shows up, and that's a whole story. He has quite a history here in Prescott. Wyatt never showed up. Next thing you know, they're in Tombstone. And the first mention of Wyatt Earp in a Prescott newspaper was after the gunfight near the OK Corral. That's the first time Doc Holliday shows up in the newspaper. Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday never showed up in a Prescott newspaper until then. And then some people started thinking back about Doc. But then I put the book out, and then I'm thinking, okay, here's the true history. I'm going to go down to Whiskey Row. I'm going to sit in the bar there. And I'm hearing him telling stories that came from my book. What were they talking about? They were talking about Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. So I started hating those guys. And, there were some swear words involved with those guys. I just couldn't stand, but I was just as fascinated by them as anyone else. And eventually, that's what led me back to studying those kind of people.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break here, and then we're going to come back and talk a little bit today about your current research on Doc Holliday and the Earps and why it's important for Prescott. Since 2007, Pinion Painting has been transforming homes and businesses with over 40 years of firsthand experience. They bring superior craftsmanship and an eye for detail to every project, making your vision a reality, hassle-free. Your time is precious. Trust Pinion Painting to get it right the first time. Visit Pinion Painting today and let them transform your space. On the web at pinionpainting.com. That's pinionpainting.com. This is Stuart Rosebrook on Arizona Roundup at Sharlot Hall Museum with my friend Brad Courtney, the Whiskey Row historian in Prescott, Arizona. And we're having a great time this afternoon talking about Sharlot Hall, her life as an inspiration to writers and historians and educators and those who love the West. And we like to celebrate that every day here at Sharlot Hall Museum. And we're also talking about a life well led in history and teaching and writing, and where you find your inspiration. And sometimes you find it in, you take a right turn or a left turn and suddenly find yourself facing your muse, and you cannot stop researching that topic. And Brad and I have talked about Wyatt Earp and Virgil and the Earps, and they are fascinating. And I think that anyone who loves the history of the Old West, they know the Earp name, they know Tombstone. They're legends around the world, as iconic as the cowboy hat and John Wayne and Clint Eastwood and Geronimo. But one character became close friends with the Earps, I think, is just stops the room, and that is Doc Holliday.
In your the booklet we did for the unveiling, your forward, I wish I could read it out loud. Your forward was just great. I wish I could read part of it, but yeah, about E.F. Hutton. You talk about Doc, everybody goes, let's talk. He's just a fascinating guy.
Right. And you did something last year, a grassroots movement here in Prescott that had not been done for many years. And it was a long time coming, joining our sister city, Dodge City, Kansas, in honoring Doc Holliday publicly here in Prescott. But it was a keystroke of research that answered a long unknown question. Where did Doc Holliday live in Prescott after the Earps left before him for Prescott? Right. And Kate Elder had left him to his own devices here in Prescott. Tell us a little bit about, your relationship here with Doc Holliday and your pursuit of the truth of his life here in Prescott.
Well, let me talk. Okay, so a lot of people know this, but just for background, Doc and Kate were living in Las Vegas, New Mexico. While he was there, New Mexico decides to outlaw gambling. And what was Doc, more than anything, was a gambler. So he got arrested a couple times. And so Wyatt comes through from Dodge City. He's heading to Tombstone because Virgil told him about this boomtown down south. Maybe we should try our luck there. And so Wyatt says yes. He comes through Las Vegas, New Mexico. At some point, he meets Doc and tells him what he's doing. My theory is that Doc was more interested in Prescott than he was Tombstone at first, because he ended up staying. And Whiskey Row was well known for its gambling. So here's a great opportunity. That's my belief. That's
clean air, good climate.
Clean air, and later on, I don't think he knew it at the time, but later on, Prescott becomes a place for tuberculosis sufferers to come to. And they had institution here.
That's right, at Fort Whipple.
Yeah. And the people always talk about he came here and he goes, oh, I think I like it here. I think he planned on staying there the whole time. Because Kate did not want to go to Tombstone. She didn't want to hang out with the Earps. They break up, just put it that way. He goes back to Las Vegas, New Mexico, but comes back. And he's living, we knew.
What year is this?
This is, okay, so he got, originally, when he came in with Wyatt, it was around November 1879, probably maybe a little sooner. Some point, Wyatt didn't stay long at all. He takes off to Tombstone. He probably didn't even unpack. Resupplied, headed to Tombstone. Doc stayed. Kate and Doc have an argument, and he gets back from Las Vegas. He gets back to Prescott around sometime in May 1880, and he's living with. This has always been fun for historians. Richard Elliott, who had a house on Montezuma Street, so we knew that part. That was documented. We knew he lived with John Gosper, who was the Secretary of the Territory, but was acting governor because John Fremont was the appointed governor, but he wasn't here, So the whole time Doc's here, he's living with the acting governor. That's what I'm currently researching and coming up with stuff. They were all busy people.
Our friend Bob Bosbell likes to say, Doc Holliday stooped so low to live with a politician.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. That's a whole scenario.
Bob's got a great sense of humor.
My thing that I wanted when we put that.
And Bob Bosbell's the owner and executive editor of True West Magazine. He's great artist and historian in his own right.
And he's got a great book
on The Illustrated Life and Times of Doc
Holliday, which I use. But when we put that marker up this past summer about where Doc lived, my hope was that people would imagine what it was like for Doc to live there with the acting governor. But that's what I'm writing. That's going to be another show. But how that happened was I got to give credit to a Sharlot Hall Museum volunteer. Her name is Sue Kissel. We knew we had the census that showed was House 52 on Montezuma Street. And I gave her the basic information. I was sitting at the archives researching someone else, and Sue was there, and she is just a bloodhound. I can't think of another word. She put her nose to the project, and I'm sitting there. I think I was researching Kate, and she comes out. And she has the property records that where Richard Elliott bought lots. There's lots 14, 16, and 18 on Montezuma Street, just above Gurley. So we found it. That's where the house was. And, I just want to make sure. I get a lot of credit for it, but it was Sue Kissel who actually found the records of where he lived.
Well, I think that's great. And, we here at Sharlot Hall have over 170 volunteers. They're at the backbone of our success here as a museum,
they meet the world
archives, and library.
Yep.
And we are very grateful for volunteers like Sue that help our historians and researchers when they come to the library. And after that research was discovered, grassroots movement began, raised a great deal of money to have and work with the city planners and city council to have that plaque put up. And you held a big event last August around Doc Holliday's birthday.
It was on Doc Holliday's birthday, yeah.
On Doc Holliday's birthday. And I understand that this is going to become an annual event, and there's an event coming up this August 2025, the second annual Doc Holliday celebration here in Prescott. What are you calling it?
So I'm hoping to call it. We got there's what do you call them, copyrights. There's Doc Hollidays that's copyrighted by someone down in Tombstone, so we changed it to Doc Holla -DAYZ. We're hip. We put the Z in there, So that's we're hoping to get at that. But I'd like to call. I want to break it into two different events. I want to have a forum, so to speak. And so far, Victoria Wilcox has agreed to speak, and she's a Doc scholar, has some books out. But so we want to have a 2-day event, and hopefully make it annual, make it something bigger. But if you're listening, mark August 16th. We're working through the Prescott Western Heritage Center. So
wonderful. And so this will be August 16th and 17th, or right now just one day with
so it'll be 15th and 16th.
15th and 16th. Yeah. So you kind of have a day where you have a forum and panels, and people may be presenting some new research or some of their favorite.
We'll have some kind of event.
Wonderful.
The Hacienda, where it's going to be this game of check.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Well, let's make sure that all those who come out for Doc Hollidays with a Z have a chance to come over and visit Sharlot Hall Museum. We'll have to maybe work out a special package for people to come for the event.
We have a plan,
to come and tour Sharlot Hall Museum. We would really like them over to see our campus while they are here.
It's a must-do thing. We must do that.
All right. Well, Brad, this is an extra special show today, having you in studio here at Sharlot Hall Museum. And Brad Courtney, thank you. We're going to have you back here very soon. And I'd like to invite Constable Ron Williams to join you next time. We'll get 3 microphones set up, and we'll talk about Murder Lerp, Johnny Behan, and Doc Holliday and the Tombstone Prescott connection.
Sounds great.
All right. Well, stay tuned, listeners to Arizona Roundup. Thanks again to my friend and Brad Courtney, the Whiskey Row historian here in Prescott, Arizona, live from Sharlot Hall Museum. We'll see you soon. Thank you. Looking for the perfect gift? Visit the Bashford House gift shop on the grounds of Sharlot Hall Museum. No admission required. Just walk right up. Explore unique, locally made treasures, a wide selection of history books, and so much more. Located in the historic Bashford House, it's the perfect stop for history buffs, gift shoppers, and curious tourists alike. Visit today and take home a gift they'll cherish. Bashford House Boutique Shop, history gifts and local charm.
Well, that's a wrap, folks, from the Sharlot Hall Museum in Prescott, Arizona, the mile-high cowboy city. My name is Stan Houston, the Radio Man, and I am the leader of the Cowboy Spirit Radio Network, and we are attempting to make sure we keep Western civilization alive by telling good Western stories and introducing people to the life and times of the great American West. And thank you for being a part of this program. Please recommend us to others. We would be grateful, and please sponsor us if you wish or can. We'd love to talk to you about that. So just reach out to charlottehallmuseum.org, charlottehallmuseum.org. And by the way, tell our sponsors you heard about them, buy from them, and please thank them for being sponsors for Arizona Roundup. Maybe you have some stories to tell and perhaps some things you'd like to share with us. Well, again, Stuart would love to hear from you. He's not only a broadcaster, he's a writer and an editor and a historian, and he loves to collect stories of people who know things about the town, the world, and the cowboy legend. So contact Stuart Rosebrook at the charlottehallmuseum.org. All the best and blessings to you. Ride tall, do good work, and always remember the cowboy way. Till next time, bye for now.